Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of Comic Monitors. I'm here with Darnell Henriquez and returning guest Joey Batts. We're here to talk about our favorite Batman comic stories of all time. So, how are you guys doing?
I just woke up. I have my morning beverage, and I'm sitting in my dark attic.
Mhm. How about you, Joey?
I'm just chilling in beautiful Southern California for the time being, having a good time.
That's nice. Well, I am ready to talk about some Batman comics. So, is there anything you guys want to start out with?
Well, I think you've been sort of doing a crash course on Batman for the past week or two. So why don't you go ahead and start us off with some revelation that you've had?
Okay, the first story I was planning to bring up on this stream is Hush by Jeff Loeb. It's not the best Batman story of all time. I'd say it's popcorn fare. It's a very basic, entertaining story. I
It's
think it's
very. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's for beginners. I think it's a good way for new readers to be introduced to Batman's world and his villains and his allies. It's a great segue into the larger world of Batman comics. And I believe it was the first Batman comic I ever read. It effectively got me hooked on Batman's mythos. So I think that if you're not super familiar with Batman stories, his villains, and everything, I think you should give Hush a try.
For
Yeah,
me, I would say. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say I remember reading like as Hush came out, and it was definitely like you said, sort of popcorn filler. It was very much the summer blockbuster, but it has so many aspects of what makes Batman Batman. He gets to do the detective work. He gets to have the knockdown, drag out fights with people like Superman, for example, and then just a lot of like good character moments about who he is, and like getting little pieces of all these different iconic villains throughout. It's just a great story, like you said, to kind of like bring you into the world of Batman and familiarize you with everything about him and his world.
Yeah, it's not, like I said, it's not super deep or anything, but it does have a great understanding of pretty much every aspect of Batman's world. It is written by professionals who know what they're dealing with. They understand Bruce Wayne, they understand his rogues gallery and his allies. So it does give you a great picture of what Batman is about, even if it's not a masterpiece or anything.
Mhm.
What do you think, Darnell?
For me, one of the things I do really enjoy about Hush is the fact that it does, similar to what Matt said, understands its rose gallery, that sort of thing, and it's down to the point that you do see, like I said, the history of Batman in points that even a hardcore Batman fan can kind of be like, oh, okay, I know this part and I know this part. Like for instance, the part I always remember of Hush is when Bruce and Bruce is talking about his childhood with Hush and how he remembers when they're both in the car and they're watching the original Green Lantern battle out the ice villain that he had. And I always thought that was cool because oh yeah, that's right. Alan Scott was originally in Gotham. And it kind of adds to like little funnier mythos that Batman is an Alan Scott fan, even though he has rivalry with every other Green Lantern fan. I mean, not fan, but you get what I mean.
Absolutely.
Yes. And last word on Hush. It looks amazing. It has Jim Lee on art, and it's in my opinion, his best work ever. It's never looked as good as it has on this story. So it's worth buying for the visuals alone.
And I will say it has one of my favorite quotes ever in the Batman Superman fight, where he talks about Clark's greatest weakness not being the kryptonite, but that it's deep down
It's
Clark Kent
being
is a good
human.
person.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. So if we're
yeah.
done talking about Hush, and either of you guys want to throw out a story?
Go for it.
Okay. For me, it's not necessarily beginners, but I do think it's a very good crash course onto kind of the both criticism and praise of Batman, and I think everybody here knows my love for it. Jeff Johns' Batman Earth One. So, because the whole point of okay, so for the people that don't know, the Earth One series is a series that kind of DC did. It's like, oh, okay, let's put these characters in a more quote unquote realistic sense. So you had Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, the Teen Titans, and next year it's gonna be Green Lantern. And so the whole premise is kind of like they're all seemingly in their own, even though it's supposed to be like an entire shared universe, they're all like in their own concentrated bubbles, so they never intermix. But it's also kind of in this weird, like, semi-realistic, almost like a movie. Like they all three, like they're scripts for movies. And the Batman one is interesting because it makes fun of Batman. At the same time, every time it praises him. Because when the Waynes get shot, they get shot because he tells the fucking mugger, hey, you know who I am? I'm Bruce Wayne. My parents can own you in a second. And then the mugger's like, oh, okay, give me your money. And just like shit like that. And then it's, there's also the other part where like he's invading a party because he's trying to take down the Penguin, and he runs up to the roof of the building where all the cops are taking a smoke break. And then he's thinking, okay, I gotta sing. So he punches the first cop he sees, which is Jim Gordon, and then like he jumps out the roof of the building, tries to activate the backlighters, and he crashes into that building and lands all over the food. So like the first time like the majority of the public sees the Batman, he's covered in like broken glass and food. But at the same time, the whole point of why it honors him is because Bruce Wayne, even though people call him an idiot and like kind of critique him and that sort of thing, he never gives up. He always shows like, no, I gotta keep the mission. I gotta keep this going. And it kind of does show his best human aspect, which is his determination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that scene you described it reminds me a bit of a Kevin Smith story, which I have not read all of, where it's like Batman is still in his early years, and I believe he sets some explosives off, but he's too close. He ends up wetting himself.
Oh yeah, that's the Briar.
Yeah, I've not read that, and I have not read Earth One myself, but I'll find the time for it someday. I have heard that it has a pretty badass Alfred in it.
Oh
yeah, he's the Alfred that basically they've based the Alfred on Gotham from.
Mm-hmm.
Just the no nonsense, like Michael Caine's Alfred, like reference that he used to be like a pretty scary dude back in the day. Yeah, but this is an Alfred who just wears it on his sleeve. Like in the concept art, even there's a tattoo on his shoulder of when he was in the Royal Marines and stuff like that. And he just he takes every opportunity he can to remind Bruce how much of an idiot he is. But he's like, okay, well, if you're gonna do this, then you're gonna do it right, and you're gonna do it my way. And so he's teaching Bruce all along the way.
And probably one of the best things, he's not even the butler in this story. He was originally hired to be the Wayne's bodyguard because Thomas Wayne was trying to be mayor. But after, Bruce died, and then Alfred originally's like, well, my job is done. And then he finds out in the will, wait, I'm supposed to be the caretaker for this kid? And then there's someone asking, so who are you? And then he's like, oh, I'm the butler?
Yeah, something a lot of people forget about Alfred is he is a badass. He is like I think he was a former Secret Service or something. He does have a history of
former Secret Service, former Royal Navy Guard, former actor.
Yeah, it keeps changing, but
well, no, like it's all of them together.
Okay.
I will also say I won't spoil it for Matt, but it also has probably my favorite interpretation and character arc for Bullock ever.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that Bullock is amazing in that story.
I love the way they utilize Bullock. I love the way I love Gordon's character arc that he has in the book and kind of the heel turn that he makes. And to be completely honest, I'm not going to be one of those people who pretends they don't like the Nolan movies all of a sudden, because that's ridiculous. And actually, Batman Begins still happens to be my favorite Nolan Batman movie. But but I couldn't help but read this book and go, man, can you imagine if this was Batman Begins?
Probably my favorite thing of the Bullock part is just, and for the reference that everybody knows, is when he says, and when if anybody actually reads this, you'll know what I mean. It's when he just goes, "Oh no, baby, this ain't good cop bad cop. This is bad cop bad cop."
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Harvey. I think he's an underrated character.
Oh, for sure. And thankfully, John's paid off on the excellent reveal at the end of Volume 1 with the whole arc of Volume 2. It's just, yeah, you do yourself a favor, Matt, and let that be one of the next stories you read, both Volume 1 and Volume 2. It's fantastic.
I definitely will.
I wish. I mean, I don't know what the script looked like. I'm not privy to that kind of information, but man, it makes me wonder. Like, you had Ben Affleck and Jeff Johns on the previous Batman script. Like, how is that not the, like, I can't imagine that script not being used. Just having obviously seen movies that Ben Affleck has written before and having read this 2 Batman stories now by Jeff Johns, like, I can't imagine it wasn't stellar. So I'm just curious as to where the disconnect ended up happening there.
And also one thing that I will also say about the Earth One books, and I know you'll love this one, Matt. It really goes after like the other villains. Like, there's no Joker in this at all. Like I said, it's Penguin, and when you read the end of book 1, you know who the other villain is, and 2 other ones that are in volume 2, and it's just like, it's great how these guys are introduced.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely sounds like a good story. So, Joey, I think it's your turn.
Well, one that is really, really special to me for a couple of different reasons that I don't think gets nearly enough attention is Batman Ego by Darwyn Cooke. Have either of you read this story?
I have.
I have not.
Okay, so I have almost an irrational love for Darwyn Cooke. Just everything the guy touched,
New Frontier is probably one of my favorites he's done.
Yeah, New Frontier is great. Which, by the way, just a quick side note: October 3rd, commemorative edition of the New Frontier movie is coming out. Darwyn Cooke is one of the commentary tracks. Please go and grab it. In any case, and I actually took it ridiculously hard when he passed. And Darwyn Cooke is one of those guys who everything that he wrote and everything that he drew had this wonderful sense of heroism, hope, and just adventure. And it was just, he knew the core of each of these characters and was able to present every single one of them at their very best every single time he put pen to paper. And Ego is no exception. So Batman Ego starts off with Bruce going after this guy. He's after the Joker. Joker ended up getting put in prison. But there's one loose end. A guy that was on the Joker's squad, he went on the run with all the money that they had gotten from their little spree, and Batman found him, finds him on a bridge. The guy starts to get up on the bridge like he's going to jump. Batman grabs him, and the guy ends up killing himself anyway because he wasn't going to put up with Batman, and he was so afraid of what the Joker was going to do to him and his family that he's just like, screw it. I'm just going to end it, and he kills himself. And so now Bruce has to go home and have this sort of existential crisis there in the cave about what on earth is he doing? Like, why is he even bothering being Batman if he can't save people like this? If it just all ends up in death anyway? And so the actual villain of the whole piece is the Batman part of his psyche, and they basically do this whole it's like It's a Wonderful Life from hell. Basically, this guy takes the Batman persona takes Bruce on this history lesson throughout his childhood and early adulthood and things like that, and they have to somehow reconcile, like, hey, I want to still be Bruce Wayne, but I can't because I have to be Batman, and this is what Batman's about and what he's not about, and they have to find a way to basically compromise and learn how to work together, not only for the sake of Gotham, but also for the sake of Bruce's own psyche / psychosis. And it's just a wonderful character piece on Bruce and on Batman himself. And I mentioned to Matt earlier, there's a wonderful moment in it where Bruce is talking to, quote, Batman, and he says, Batman is a symbol for fear to criminals, but he's also a symbol of hope to the people of Gotham. And he remains uncompromising in that. And it's one of those things that, you can read these Batman stories and say whatever you want about him just punching bad guys here and there, but Batman really is at his core somebody who gives you hope for a better tomorrow. And like I said, Darwyn Cooke, more than so many other people, really got that and really was able to present that in an amazing fashion in the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like, first of all, I don't blame you for being such a huge fan of Darwyn Cooke. He is amazing. And also I want to say that, even though I have not read this one either, that I think Batman gets a lot of flack as just like this very unpleasant, angry, broody hero. And to an extent he is, but what people forget is he also has like some of the most strident and virtuous morals of any hero ever. He's a guy who just refuses to compromise his values no matter how much he's pressured to do so. He, as far as I can tell, has always refused to kill his enemies. He is deep down truly a good guy despite his flaws. So it's always nice when creators go out of their way to make that clear to the reader.
I mean, for me, like, the biggest flaw I always saw of Batman was just his, and I mean this in the most legitimate sense, and I guess literal sense, his xenophobia, which is like, like I said, everything that we talked about, but when the writers actually do show, but he actually does have this part because of his paranoia, that makes sense. And then when you have characters calling him out on it, like, Matt here knows my love of Booster Gold and the Blue Beetle death, so, that's an actual good reason. That's an actual good reason onto why hammer down Batman. Dude, this lower ranking guy told you about this, died proving it to you. Yeah, you deserve a little bit of flack for this one. But just for this one, everything else is like, okay, everything else is understandable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, like how, so just the idea of, you can only imagine how many people always die when the Joker goes on the loose. And it's just sort of whatever. And you might think that, oh, well, it's all just, casualties of war as you're fighting the supervillains and stuff like that. But just that one death of that guy killing himself because there's literally nothing else. He felt there was nothing else he could do. Like, for all the tough brooding and stalking that Batman does, he still takes even just a death of a single man like that, of one single hopeless individual like that, so hard that he has this huge existential crisis. It's just really telling about the kind of person he is. Like, he's not, like, yes, he puts on the mask, but he still very much cares. And, he made that promise long ago that nobody was going to have to feel that hopeless and have to feel that pain ever again. And every time that he fails, he takes it as hard as, or harder than really anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Batman, he is undeniably paranoid. Even people who are only casually familiar with Batman knows that he's at least a little bit paranoid, but he is as selfless a hero as you can find. So if we...
All right, now that we're done polishing the Batmobile, what's the other stories?
Okay, next one I'm going to bring up is Batman Venom. It's a Dennis O'Neil story. It's I think the...
Oh, man, tell them who recommended this story to you.
Someone besides you, actually.
Yeah, I know, but tell them who else. I mean, who?
I mean,
The tweet you showed me.
uh, oh yeah, he did not recommend it, but Scott Snyder showed up on my timeline to tell me what a great story that was. Scott Snyder does actually follow me on Twitter. It's a long story as to why that happened, but I did have
Laughing every day.
yeah, I had the blessing from Scott Snyder himself when I went into Batman Venom. I'll tell you guys the story on another stream. But Venom, it's a Dennis O'Neil story. It's the only story from that era I've read so far, and it is very, and it is another story that I feel really shows Batman as a human, because it shows him going through freaking drug withdrawal. It shows him like it's kind of like an early days story before he even had a Robin, I think, where he's like, kind of still struggling under the weight of being a vigilante. So he ends up turning to like a Venom, the drug that gave Bane his super strength in an early untested stage, to make himself stronger. And it's slowly driving him insane. And once he comes to terms with that, he ends up like locking himself in the Batcave for a whole month while he goes through withdrawal. So you can tell right now that it's a pretty unique premise for a Batman story already. It shows Batman fighting a shark without shark repellent bat spray in a really badass scene. So I think Venom is very underrated and underappreciated Batman story.
Well, and once again, it is another example of Bruce, failing to keep his promise again, and going to these extreme lengths to try to re-up on it and try to keep that promise again, because like we were just saying, how hard he takes these things, all these little failures, and yet he never stops. He's always going to try to find a way to keep getting better and try to keep that promise. Now, granted, this time it didn't work out so well for him, and we saw the after effects of that, because you also have to deal. I mean, Batman's a perfect character to analyze what happens when you let your passions and your emotions drive you down the wrong path. And once again, it's a testament to his strength of will and strength of character, to showing him basically coming back from that abyss and being able to walk even back. He crosses the line a little bit with the Venom, and he's able to drag his way back across and get back to where he was, and just again offering not only the idea of basically this warning, but also just that, again, there's always that hope that nobody's ever too far gone, and we can get back to where we were, and we can be better without compromising who we are.
And for me, one of my favorite things is because I told Matt this when he showed me the Zack Snyder tweet, which is Batman Venom is pretty much DC's Devil in the Bottle story. And I don't mean this in like it's just copying off. I mean this in like the style quality. But it's like into the two big points, because anybody here who's heard of Devil in the Bottle, it's the classic Iron Man story where he stops being an alcoholic. And like I said, the two parallels with this are very similar for me. With the one bigger one is that Devil in a Bottle was Tony doing something that he always did for leisure, and something that was tied to his character since almost the little first ever appearance he was in. Whereas Venom is more something Batman did as a temporary short time to kind of boost his career. So I always kind of like that character dynamic better, to kind of differentiate between Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Venom, it's an older story. It's from, I think, the mid 80s. I think the writing is a little bit hokey at times, but despite that, I think it's a very effective story. Like, it is not.
We also got to remember this story was also made to make it like, hey, don't do steroid, kids.
Yeah, it is a bit of a message story, but it succeeds in spite of those minor flaws. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things that really like rises above its initial intention. Like, yes, it was just slapping Batman on a steroid issue, but like I said, I think it really kind of brings out some great points about who Batman and who Bruce Wayne is at his core.
Yeah, it's like the Star Trek 4 of Batman comics. It's like God, it's all about like delivering a public service announcement, but it does it in a very satisfying way.
For sure.
Yeah. And Darnell, you can go, but I have to take a quick bathroom break, so I'll be gone for just a minute.
I love how he has to take it during my break. You know he did this deliberately.
I'll be back in a minute.
All right. So I'm thinking. Oh, all right. Now they're back here. I might as well do one of my absolute favorites after. After one Long Halloween.
Okay. By the way, my absolute number one ever. But go ahead.
Yeah, for me, it's the top three. It's Earth One, Long Halloween, and then Year One. But anyway, for the audience, Long Halloween it's once again a Jeff Loeb story that was made during, was it the 90s?
Late 90s, yeah.
Yeah, late 90s, and essentially it's pretty much what I could count it down as to. It's a detective story. It's a detective story that is set during the early years of Batman. It's right after Frank Miller's Year One, and the whole premise that I can pretty much say the entire theme and plot of it. The villains are starting to take over the power from the mob. So now there's a serial killer going around killing both monster and supervillains, and Batman and Harvey Dent are trying to, take down the quote unquote holiday killer.
Yeah.
You're talking about Long Halloween.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Keep going, Darnell.
Yeah, so like I said, one of the things I like is the fact that the story is set in black and white, even though it was, not necessarily completely in color, and that they did that for kind of, like the whole noir sense. I like the introduction of all the characters in it because of the fact that it's, like I said, it's almost like I said, it's this crime story where he's actually trying to be the detective. He even has to like interrogate the Joker and like, okay, who's the holiday killer and that sort of thing. The riddles. Well, okay, I say riddles, but like the way the holiday killer works, it's very interesting because you're like, okay, what kind of holiday and who's he going to kill per holiday? Like for instance, on April Fool's Day, he goes after the Riddler, and his thing is, when does the killer not kill on April Fool's Day? And also, this is a very huge inspiration on the Nolan films that you can see because once again, the iconic scene of the Joker burning the money, that's from Long Halloween, except instead of the Joker, it's Batman and Batman and Gordon. The whole "I believe in Harvey Dent" thing that comes from this book. Hell, Harvey Dent is a major character in the story.
Yeah, I love The Long Halloween. I just read it last week, I think. I really enjoy murder mysteries. Long Halloween is probably one of the best murder mystery stories in any medium I've ever read. It does a good job keeping you guessing till the end. And again, it's a great origin for Harvey Dent. Two-Face. Two-Face is one of my favorite Batman villains. I love his psychosis, and it gives you a great background on Harvey Dent. So, and again, everyone who enjoys The Dark Knight should definitely give The Long Halloween a read just to see where some of Nolan's inspiration came from.
For me, just one of the, like I said, probably one of my biggest things I love about it is just how it pretty much translates completely into the idea of Gotham is going from gangsters to villains. Like they talk about that a lot. How it's like we used to be guys in suits and all these certain things, and now it's people in costumes with fucking superpowers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love that scene with the Riddler that you mentioned, where they let him live because it was April Fool's Day. I'm trying to think of the other best moments. I guess you can
Arbor Day with Poison Ivy.
Oh yeah, Poison Ivy.
I actually really enjoy the joke that Loeb keeps going not only through this story but also through the sequel Dark Victory of the because I'm a sucker for a good running gag. But the whole, oh, it's hot, but not as hot as the night Johnny Vitti got married.
Yeah, but I also, I'm sorry, you can go.
No, I was just saying. So I really appreciate him constantly calling back to that throughout that book and the next. So, but go ahead.
Yeah, and I also absolutely loved Joker acting like the Grinch. That made me happy.
Oh yes. Well, okay. So this might put a shadow over my mother's parenting methods to let a 10-year-old read The Long Halloween as it's coming out monthly, but I did anyway. And it was as great as this story is in collected form. Oh my gosh, reading it monthly as it came out, like, because it came out in October, like that was the October issue of Legends of the Dark Knight, and it ran an entire year, so that you could get, like, every single month was the different holiday and the different killing, and just it was such effective storytelling that you were just like, oh, what's it going to be this month? And you almost felt the same sort of feeling of dread and wonder. Maybe it was because I was a little kid, but the sort of same feeling of dread as the citizens of Gotham were, just waiting. Oh, great! What's it going to be next month? What day is it going to be on? What body is going to turn up dead or whatever? It was just a wonderful way to pull out that mystery, and just a really cool piece of storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I one issue with Long Halloween is I kind of wish the very last scene of the story isn't there. I'm not going to spoil everything, but I kind of liked how the story was wrapping up until the final scene. So that's just a bit of a gripe. But even then, it's just subjective for me. I think, I don't know if you guys feel differently.
It's funny, as many times as I've read that book, a lot of times I'll get to the end and I'll be like, wait, really?
Yeah.
So it is kind of out of nowhere, but it doesn't take anything away from it for me.
It feels like the writer. I'm just gonna say, I think Loeb really wanted to end on kind of an ambiguous note, which I think it could have done without. Not everything has to be ambiguous.
Yeah.
You can go, Darnell.
Yeah, for me, I was going to say, because like I said, I do understand from that point, but also it was more, since I always saw it from the point of view of the, characters related into it, where it's kind of just showing like, oh, it's not his fault. Like, so you even see at this point, it's not his fault. It's, and I think that kind of goes into like how his relationship with everyone, how he's abused by everyone. The story just kind of just shows this whole, the story kind of just shows like his entire life has always just been kind of like a shit show.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about Harvey.
And yeah, well, I didn't want to spoil what character I'm talking about, but it's like, yeah, it's like the whole idea that it's like, it's like, even as Harvey turns into Two-Face and he's, should I say that he's framed for it? That he's framed for the holiday killings?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, even though that shows like he's being now framed for being the holiday killer, and his life is essentially completely destroyed. He didn't do it. He's innocent. Like he turned into Two-Face for no other reason. And for me, that's kind of like the tragedy, because it's like he obviously even knows he's innocent, but now the other part of his brain is like, okay, yeah, we're innocent, but look at like it shows like how through him the justice system is kind of destroyed.
Mm-hmm. So if we're done talking about Long Halloween, Joey, you want to go?
Okay, so it should be no surprise, based off of my Twitter handle and my profile picture, that I'm a huge Dick Grayson shill, and I'm okay with that. But the one of my favorite Batman stories is actually The Battle for the Cowl.
Mm-hmm.
So just to catch everybody up, like we've been doing, it's Bruce Wayne is considered dead after he got killed by Darkseid, and basically there is no Batman, and there's this whole argument between basically everybody, every masked vigilante in Gotham over, well, whose turn is it now to step up and take charge. And you have some who are reluctant to do it, some who want more than anything to do it. I mean, they even pulled Catman in on the whole thing at one point. But I loved watching the transformation of Dick Grayson into the new Batman. I loved watching Jason go, like, as much as he tried to, tear apart Bruce and the whole under the hood thing, and goes on about how he's doing things a better way, like trying to see him usurp the mantle and basically corrupt what Batman's always stood for. And that's really what it is. It kind of treats Batman as its own character apart from Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson, Tim Drake, everybody. And it really examines who is Batman and what does he mean. Everybody's kind of got their own interpretation of it. Like Tim Drake is the great detective version, like we talked about before, about the last time I was on in the Underused Characters. We talked about Tim becoming the next greatest detective, and then Jason just trying to be like the dark vigilante, just Punisher with a bat on his chest instead. And then Dick really coming into his own as sort of like this leader and this symbol. And I've grown up with Dick Grayson. I fell hook, line, and sinker for the whole, oh, well, let's make Robin so that kids have something to aspire to because they know they can't be Batman. And I fell for it, and I've followed Grayson my entire life. There's no greater comic book character in my eyes, and I love the end. Just the whole time he's been trying to fight who he is, because he knows that everybody wants him to be Batman, even though Bruce even left him a message on the Batcomputer saying, "Hey, don't do this. Don't be me." And going back to if you guys remember when Batman was recreating the Outsiders, he actually like stopped Nightwing from joining the Outsiders because he said you fight the good fight, Dick. Let us fight the bad one. Like this is not like it's wanting better. It's wanting better for your son than you had, and he's tried to fight it forever. And then at the end, there's just really nothing else to do but stand up and be who you were always meant to be. And there's a great, if you'll indulge me just for just a little bit longer, I love his whole monologue at the very end. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because I'm not that conceited, but I love it. Says things like, it takes courage to face yourself in the mirror and look beyond the reflection. And he's like, everything, like things go wrong, and where your life was supposed to go, it gets twisted. And he says, but finally, like after all this happens, all these tragedies, it gives you the courage to embrace your birthright and your destiny, and finally realize that you are Batman. And it harkens back to I'm sure somebody at some point will probably mention Dark Knight Returns, but the idea of like everybody being the Bat, and it even goes into Scott Snyder's not Endgame, but when Bruce came back after Endgame, at the end of Gordon being Batman, but the whole idea of like we are Batman, and it's just that everybody can rise up to the occasion and be who they were always meant to be, and it's the tragedies in life that give us the courage to do so. And yeah, I love that story. So.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You got any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, like I said, probably for me, my favorite thing with Battle for the Cowl was like I said, it's just the idea that you have the two sons. You have the Dick, who's kind of the prodigal son who left the nest and made something for himself, but now has to come back to it. Versus Jason, the one who had the other ideological issues with Batman, but essentially now he wants to take the mantle because of the fame it gets. And, you kind of do see like this good parallel between the two characters as well. So like what they think Batman stood for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Oh, sorry.
I'm going to put it out there. Jason Todd makes a better villain as the Red Hood than as a hero. Fight me.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
what
he
I always
does.
been
He
saying.
does. Yeah, I like him better as a bad guy. Yeah, but I've not read Battle for the Cowl, but since we're talking about Dick Grayson as Batman, the next story I like to talk about is
Black Mirror.
Yeah, you read my mind there.
Let the man talk.
And before I get into it, I wanted to say I agree that Dick Grayson is more deserving of anyone else to be Bruce Wayne's successor. Like even if you got a Damian, who's his biological son, Tim, who's I'll argue he's more like Bruce Wayne than any of the other Robins. I still think Dick has done more to earn that role, both in the comics and in real life, because he's the only other person in the Bat family who like lives up to Bruce Wayne's iconic status. So on all levels, I do believe Dick Grayson does deserve to be the next Batman, even if DC will never let him permanently replace Bruce, which should happen, but it won't. But anyway, Black Mirror.
It's a shame. It's a real shame. Dick Grayson, Batman, and Damian Wayne Robin are my favorite incarnation of the dynamic duo.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Black Mirror. It's no secret that I have some issues with Scott Snyder's Batman work, especially his new 52 stuff. I've already spoken about that. That said, Black Mirror is fucking brilliant. I was honestly blown away by how good it turned out to be. Like the first few issues I thought were just decent. I'm like, okay, this is a good story. I'm enjoying this. But then it got to the climax, and I'm like, holy shit. Scott Snyder really does have some writing chops. If he had just stuck with Dick Grayson as Batman for a little while longer, I think he would be one of my favorite Batman writers of all time. Like my one slight issue with Black Mirror is that like at times he writes Dick a little bit too close to Bruce Wayne. Like reading Morrison's run with Damian as Robin, I feel like he did a good job distinguishing Grayson's Batman from Wayne's Batman. I feel like they were a bit more distinct. In Black Mirror, he felt sort of like a slightly nicer version of Bruce, who sometimes had internal monologues about growing up in the circus. But despite that, it's a very compelling story. It makes a great use of Commissioner Gordon's other child. I think his name's Jim Gordon Jr. Makes great use of him. And I'm trying to think what else happened in the story. You guys want to carry me?
The child of the Flying Grayson's killer.
Oh yeah, the daughter of the Zuko mob leader. She was in it.
I actually really like the way it. I really like the way it began. Like we talked about Hush earlier, and like Tommy kind of like gave all of the villains sort of like this power boost or whatever. And I kind of liked how that was sort of reflected here at the beginning of the Black Mirror. Oh, sorry, that's a really poor choice of words. I just realized. But right here at the beginning of the Black Mirror, where somebody is basically like recreating in a way all of Batman's classic villains, with the kid getting mutated into Killer Croc, and then there's like the auction of all of the old villain stuff, up to and including the crowbar that beat Jason Todd.
Yeah, that scene. That was a very surprisingly intense scene.
Yeah.
I think you gotta imagine, like, if that actually does happen, because I remember this happens in Marvel comics a lot, but like you're a hero and you find this like piece of memorabilia from another character, especially something that's like really dramatic. Like let's say for instance, this is the glider that the Joker threw that blonde bitch out of. Like, do you give that to the hero that it is related to, or do you just keep it for yourself?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It maybe if you're just trying to mess with them, it's all about whatever your end game is, really.
Mm-hmm. And I remember.
I can only just imagine, like if you do give that glider to Spider-Man, like, hey Peter, look, I found the glider that the Goblin threw Gwen Stacy out of. You can even see the blood stain from when her neck snapped. He's just gonna start fucking crying.
Well, canonically, Gwen cheated on him with Norman anyway, so let's just move on and
We don't talk about
get back to
that.
Batman.
We're not talking
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, let's move on. I remember what I wanted to say about Black Mirror. I think the reason it rises above Snyder's other Batman work is because it's not trying to be like this huge epic story. It's just
trying
like
to be more personal.
yeah. It's like it's not as ambitious as his other work. It's a lot more small scale than his other stories. But I think that's because he's not trying his ass off to like leave his own personal mark on Batman's mythos like he did throughout pretty much his entire New 52 run. He's just focused on telling the best possible story he can. And for that reason, it feels a lot more important than his other ambitious works. Like, I'm hoping that maybe 10 or 20 years from now, the Black Mirror will be more highly regarded than all his other work, because I think it deserves to be. I think he put a lot more care into making the story as personal and compelling as possible, as opposed to just making the next big thing. And for that reason, it kind of is the next big thing.
It really was, and it's actually an excellent example of why I've traditionally enjoyed reading detective comics over the main Batman title. I mean, even before the New 52, it's because there are usually these more personal stories, and it just, I feel like, because don't get me wrong, I actually really enjoy Court of Owls, I enjoy Death of the Family, I enjoy Endgame, but I do think that Snyder was just trying really, really, really hard to, and it's kind of expected that, okay, Batman, like the main Batman title is traditionally like our highest selling book, so you've got to really bring it so that we keep that trend going, and it kind of compels him to do these huge blockbusters instead of like these smaller, really cool character pieces.
Mm-hmm. And actually, a fan asked us to talk about Court of the Owls. So you guys want to give your thoughts on that real quickly?
Well,
Court of the Owl.
I was just saying before we, I would love to talk about Court of Owls, but just before we get away from Black Mirror, I think it's worth mentioning. Dang it, I miss Oracle.
Oh yeah,
Oracle. Barbara Gordon as Oracle so much. I don't think she's ever been stronger than as Oracle. Just intellectually, emotionally, she's such a great character. And seeing her when everybody else thinks she's helpless, even little Jim, wants to like sit there and like try to drag her down and try to mock her and everything. And at the same time, she's just giving it to him. And she's able to go toe to toe with him, even in her state of supposed weakness. And oh gosh, I miss her so much.
Yeah, Barbara Gordon was much more badass as Oracle than she is as Batgirl, because she accomplished so much despite her disability. She's honestly accomplished more during her Oracle days than she has in the entirety of her Batgirl years, even in spite of her disability. So I do agree that
she was pretty much the CIA for the superhero community.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she could still kick ass, like not just like with computers, like she could still physically kick ass on occasion, despite her spine being broken. So I do agree we missed out on something really great when they took her out of the Oracle role, and not just because the other Batgirls were better.
She had a really cool mini series during Battle for the Cow where it was just her versus the Calculator. It was a really cool little 3-issue mini. So,
I mean, they even represent the DC Universe game.
Yeah, that's true. She's still there. DC. Every time I turn on DCUO, I still get to have Oracle. So, thank you, DCUO.
Mm-hmm.
I love how it's like now it's like, yeah, we now have to go to the online mobile game because now it's like every time I turn on Marvel Heroes, hey, it's the Marvel I used to love.
Yeah.
With the Bendis I used to love, because this story is a complete shit.
All right, so
Court of Owls.
The person in the chat wanted to talk about Court of Owls. So going into the New 52, I had a lot of high hopes. I was looking at all the was looking at all the covers for all the books, and I'm not gonna lie, I got all 52 issue ones because I am unapologetically obsessed with DC, and I will give everything a try, even if I don't stick with it. And when I read that first issue of Batman Court of Owls, it felt, I don't know. I guess I was just expecting more of a, I guess because I had just read Black Mirror and then all of a sudden Scott Snyder was on Batman. I felt almost a little let down because it really did seem like it was just like the prologue to a big blockbuster. And while in the end I was actually really pleased with it, I like the idea of he always explained it as Batman always thinks that Gotham is his city and that he knows everything about it, and then realizing that, like, you know nothing, Jon Snow, and the carpet gets, or the rug gets pulled out from under him. I thought that was a really cool turn. I think it's a really cool sort of organization to put against him and kind of put Batman back on his heels. I just feel like it got bigger than it needed to be. It's now become like this all-encompassing, like, if we ever talk about Gotham, it has to deal with the Court of Owls thing now.
And also, you just have the fact that now the Court of Owls has now become so diluted that essentially they've become the hand of the, DC universe, even though it's like, no, the whole point is that they were supposed to be like this small, tiny little group that only Batman has to deal with, and now it's like, talents for everyone.
Yes, that too.
Yeah, I do very much dislike some of the after effects of Court of the Owls, like, those goddamn owls are everywhere now. But despite that, I do enjoy the story. It's popcorn fare, but I think it's very well written popcorn fare. It's very atmospheric. It did get me. I read it when it first came out. I was 15 or 16 at the time. It was so long ago. I bought it in the store. But it did get me hyped for the rest of Scott Snyder's Batman run. Then Death of the Family came out and instantly destroyed all my hype. But I do think Court of the Owls is very good.
It's kind of bad that when Matt said those owls those damn owls are everywhere now, I just imagine Matt getting pestered by, like, giant hordes of owls.
Yeah, they're just constantly waiting out his window.
Mm-hmm.
But no, and yeah,
and his cats are the only things that are protecting him.
And don't get me wrong, like what I was just saying about how I am disappointed that it just became like this huge like monkey on the back of the Batman mythos. I do agree with you, Matt, that like the story itself, just Court of Owls, just that beginning arc of the New 52 Batman. Yeah, I thought that story in itself was really strong, and my initial sort of meh feeling crescendoed into this great appreciation for it. I thought it was a really cool story, and it just, like I said, it just became this unwieldy monster taking over everything. I really like the idea that where was I going? Oh yeah, the idea of, there's,
nothing to us now.
Not so much that as in just, Gotham has always sucked. Well, why has it always sucked? Well, it's because there's these terrible people keeping the man is keeping you down always. It's this secret society, the elite, just trying to keep Gotham where it is so they can continue to prosper. However, I am a little pissed off that it's like, oh, Dick Grayson's only as great as he is because the court wanted him to be that way. I'm not down with that. I prefer Dick Grayson to be this kid who was raised by somebody who had dealt with tragedy and like brought him to rise above it and become something better than he was. And also, like, I don't like that it became this whole. It's still, holy crap! Even in Rebirth, it is still like, oh, the Court of Owls is trying to control Dick Grayson, trying to control Damian, and like trying to take everything from Batman. It's like, let it go. Let's tell other stories and move on.
I mean, they should have just kept the Court of Owls small, just like this organization that sticks to the shadows, just kind of like does these things to manipulate Gotham, but it just isn't constantly in your face. It would have been nice if Snyder just like kind of hints at their existence and then just like given them a rest for the next decade or so before he brought them out again. But
So essentially, the Hills Have Eyes of Gotham.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and then that whole Dick Grayson thing was stupid. That was, I think, the first sign that something was amiss about Scott Snyder's vision for the Batman family. But
another thing I'll say is, as well written as it was, I felt that the Thomas Wayne Owlman thing, I felt that was a little lazy in the sense that it just seemed to me like Tommy Elliott all over again, but Bruce's actual brother. But he was still Bruce has what should have been mine, so I'm going to tear down everything he knows and take it from him.
Yeah, I forgot about that. What happens to that guy anyway?
Since I haven't seen him since Batman Eternal, I don't think.
Yeah, I was gonna say he appeared in Batman Eternal. I think he was in. No, he wasn't. I thought he was in. For some reason, I thought he was in Endgame, but then I realized he wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Another idea of Scott Snyder's that didn't quite pan out.
Yeah, now I'm really curious here. Where was it that? Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of. Was he anywhere else after Batman Eternal? I really don't think he was.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah, well, you think about that. I think it's my turn to go. Okay. I recently read Batman: A Lonely Place of Dying, and to be fair, it's I think it's more of a Robin story than a Batman story. It focuses more on Tim Drake and Dick Grayson than does Bruce. It focuses on Bruce quite a bit, but it's more about Robin than it is about Batman. It was the introductory story for Tim Drake, I like Dick Grayson slightly more as a character overall, but Tim will always be my ideal Robin, and it does do a pretty damn good job capturing the importance of Robin and Batman's mythos. It's fairly simplistic.
Sorry to interrupt, but I just realized, yeah, he died in Nightwing Rebirth.
That's right, with the Parliament of Owls. Okay.
I vaguely remember that now.
Yeah, that's right, folks. There are more owls.
Yeah. But yeah, like I was saying,
went from a court to a parliament, and then it's just going to turn into an entire planet of owls.
Yeah, exactly. Planet of the Owls, like Planet of the Apes, only with owls that no one wants to read about anymore. But like I was saying, Lonely Place of Dying, Tim Drake's introductory story. It's pretty simplistic. It's just basically just very simple take on why Batman needs a Robin. It's like he just needs someone in the field with him to keep Batman concentrated, to keep him in check, to give him something to care about so he doesn't lose his shit. It just like a sidekick to ground him in reality. Nothing super complex, but it's very simple and I think emotionally effective story. I've heard some people say it's overrated or not the best story. I disagree. I think it's really good. And I think it's very disappointing that the very basic message of Batman needs a Robin has been kind of lost on most modern Batman writers, because Robin is hardly anywhere now. The only times you ever see the dynamic duo are in other books. I think we saw more Batman and Robin in a freaking Deathstroke than we have in any actual Batman title now. So I think the entire Batman writing and editing crew should go back and reread A Lonely Place of Dying to get their minds back on track. And I'm not even like a huge Damian Wayne fan. Like I just figured this out the other day. He'll always be the character I don't hate, but I don't really love either. But I respect the Batman and Robin relationship enough that I can put aside my issues with Damian and just kind of respect the iconography of that duo. So I really think Lonely Place of Dying does have a lot of importance in Batman's history.
Can I just say one thing I just thought of that just completely, and I kind of want to shoot myself over?
What's that?
Do you imagine, like, that joke at the Planet of the Owls? Can you imagine if they title it NWO, New World Owl?
Okay, Stop
I
it.
want to shoot myself for actually coming up with that idea and it possibly now coming true.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. But no, but The Lonely Place of Dying. So yeah, I think exactly for the reason you said. That's why it does qualify as a great Batman story, because it's really easy for Batman to get lost in this. I mean, as has been demonstrated over decades now, and in many of the stories that we've already mentioned, that he's always just kind of like right there at the edge. He could really snap at any moment. But the biggest reason that he doesn't is because he has this family around him that kind of grounds him and gives him somebody, or gives him something greater to strive for, and to basically guide these misguided souls, because he knows he's not the sanest or even the best person, but he's the best that they've got, and so he's trying to help all of them become something greater and something better. And just, even though Tim sort of like forces his way into Bruce's life, he still realizes, hey, not only could this kid use my help, but I really need his. And so it's a great to see Batman sort of get back on track, kind of get back on the horse after the tragedy of Jason. And it's a really, really cool story.
Yeah, and if you're interested in checking it out, I would recommend reading it right after A Death in the Family. That's the one where the previous Robin, Jason Todd, is murdered by the Joker. I did it in reverse. I read Lonely Place of Dying, then Death in the Family, which is all wrong, but whatever. But yeah, I think Lonely Place of Dying, it's at its heart, it's a decent handbook on why Robin is important to the Batman mythos. It's a very easily digestible story. So that's what I think of it.
Yep. For anybody listening who's interested, it's Batman 440 through 442. So
I never remember the numbers. You're good.
Mm-hmm.
So Darnell, I think you're up.
Well, I mean, I already did Long Halloween. I already. Let me look at my Batman list.
Would you like a suggestion?
Go ahead.
How about Killing Joke?
You're 1/4 out. Oh, okay. No, I actually got it because Killing Joke is safe. Okay. Arkham Asylum.
Okay. Oh, Arkham Asylum. That's good.
Mm-hmm. So should I start or should? Okay, yeah. So Arkham Asylum. The inspiration for the now very famous video game Arkham Asylum is, I think it's Grant Morrison's first big one, because I know he did Doom Patrol, and while that was it's very famous now, it didn't earn him the money that Arkham Asylum did. But
yeah, it
is
his first Batman work. Yeah.
Yeah. Arkham Asylum is essentially, we all know a little bit of the premise. Batman takes the Joker over to Arkham Asylum, and this book is pretty much what turns Arkham Asylum from turning into just being, oh hey, it's a prison, to no, it's a fucking madhouse. Because it does a very good job of creating horror without being a horror book.
Yeah, I'm a really big horror junkie, and I'll say that Arkham Asylum is probably, out of what I've read, the closest Batman story to a straight up horror story. Not quite, but it does have some pretty intense moments. It's very atmospheric. It does have some undeniable horror elements, but it's more psychological thriller, if anything.
Yeah, because like I said, a lot of the basic, like the way when Armadeus Arkham thing, and the way the prison and the art thing. Like, the scene that always still haunts me is the part where the Joker is like, "Welcome to the madhouse," and you see all of the bubbles of all the inmates, and there's one inmate that's saying "The dog is hurting me, Daddy. The dog is it's trying to get inside me," and I'm just like, "Oh, good God."
Yeah, and the whole story looks beautiful. I forget the artist's name, but it looks absolutely amazing. As I was turning through those first pages, just blown away by the quality of the arts.
the scene where Batman stabs himself with a broken piece of knife to kind of like get himself back into reality.
Yeah, yeah, very grisly.
All right, Joe, you want to go ahead?
But no, I just on Arkham Asylum, I don't I don't know like what like where Grant Morrison uh like buys his drugs,
Well,
but
no, that's actually the most beautiful
man,
thing because I owned Grant Morrison's autobiography, and I'm a huge Grant Morrison fan, and I read the Absolute edition of Arkham Asylum. He
uh-huh.
didn't do any drugs while this book was after this book was the reason he started doing drugs because of all the money he got. So he was completely stone cold sober when he did this. All he said is like his entire thing is like, oh no, I just looked up mental asylums and did all my research.
Jeez. Well, I mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff that you guys have already mentioned in the story, and a lot of cool moments. One of my favorite being, yeah, where you guys mentioned Batman stabbing himself. But I think one of the biggest things is, Arkham Asylum, we see it as this thing that never really helps anybody, like at all. It's
Like,
just it's just this like merry-go-round with a revolving door that just kind of like spits the villains back out every couple of months once the other ones, once their story runs out.
like there's this.
But
That reminds me of this. Sorry to interrupt. There's this reminds me of this subplot with a Two-Face, where this doctor is like trying to give him the ability to make choices again by like weaning him off the coin onto like a pack of cards, so he can make multiple choices. But it just leaves him so mentally screwed up that he can't even decide whether to use the bathroom or not. It just makes him even worse. I thought that was a kind of a pretty good, darkly comical moment.
Yeah, and then for me, my favorite part is when Batman is like, the villains are after him, and it's like, wait, give Harvey back the coin, and it's like let Harvey decide, and then Harvey's like, um, all right, clean, we let him go, scratch, we kill him, and then he does the coin flip, and he's like, we let him go, and then you see like, really the coin, and then the Joker's like, let me see it, and then Harvey's like, you want me to shoot you? And then Batman leaves, and then you see the reveal of the coin. You see the reveal of the coin, and it's Scratch showing like Bruce did the right thing. Like that is how you actually do heal. You heal Harvey not by taking away the thing, but by trying to appeal to it.
yeah, definitely. And I was gonna say that moment with Harvey is just so great. Goes to the idea of, yeah, we can possibly change. And I love always going back to I don't necessarily like versions of the Dent and Wayne relationship where they're antagonistic. I've actually always liked the idea that they were friends first, and that deep down Bruce's friend is still always there. I like some of the things that they brought in as far as like adding extra nuance to some of the villains. Like, I think a villain that gets way or not nearly enough credit is the Mad Hatter. Mad Hatter's always been
the Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland, the little pedophile thing they did in that book.
Yeah, he's always been one of the creepiest Batman villains to me, whether animated or in the comics or whatever. And if you guys ever read, I can't remember if it's Robin Year One or Batgirl Year One, where he's the
Robin.
Yeah, so the guy's just always been super creepy, and just they really drove it home in this book, and I loved it.
Yeah, I like Mad Hatter a lot. But Joey, I think it's your turn.
Going back to Scott Snyder, just so that nobody out there thinks that I just hate Scott Snyder. Actually, I really enjoy his story Gates of Gotham. Have you guys read Gates of Gotham at all?
Gates of Gotham. I'm trying to remember it.
I was going to, but I didn't have the chance.
Okay, well, basically it's basically a history lesson on Gotham City, and that's really why I like it, because the Waynes have always been a part of Gotham City, the Cobblepots have always been a part of Gotham City, the
Oh
Elliots have
wait,
always been a
is this
part of Gotham City.
yeah, is that the one where it's essentially like it shows Batman's grand ancestor who was the lawyer, and then the kind of like how they built up their wealth.
Uh, well, it's more like how some of like the more famous, yeah, like all the way back to 1881, and it's like
Yeah, okay, so I did read it.
yeah, like building the bridges and then building the Wayne Towers and everything, and it's just basically this family, the Gate family, just constantly getting screwed throughout history by the three big families of Gotham, and basically just them finally having enough of it and taking their revenge. And there's nothing there's no like earth shattering revelations or whatever, but I've just always liked stories that kind of go after Bruce's family. There's all this talk online, and when people start talking about Batman, there's always the idea of, is Batman the mask or is Bruce the mask or whatever nonsense you want to go with. But to me, Batman, one way or another, or Bruce Wayne or whoever you want to call him, I've always seen him still as that same scared little boy in the alleyway, that he's either playing at what he thinks a well-adjusted adult in his sort of status or lot in life should act like, and at the same time basically going back to him being Zorro, like he admired when he was a kid, or in the animated series The Great Ghost, or whoever the masked hero that he grew up idolizing was, like what he thinks a hero should be. And the one thing that he can't ever really get away from is his attachment to his family and who his family is. And so he can like swear off Bruce Wayne and just go on full being Batman, or he can take a step back from being Batman and kind of let his minions in the Bat family take control, but he can't ever run away from what his family is and has been and has done in Gotham. And so just the idea of going back and seeing basically how his family and all these other families in Gotham basically made their fame and fortune on the backs and the labor of these other families that didn't get that kind of got left by the wayside. I thought was just a really cool moment, and a really cool story to explore and kind of see the ramifications thereof, and just these things that Batman can't really fight and can't really change because it's already happened.
Yeah, the way I see Bruce Wayne's psychology, like you're talking about right now, is that Bruce, he thinks Batman is who he truly is. He thinks that Bruce Wayne is the mask and Batman is who he's become. But I think that in reality, it's the other way around. Deep down, he still is Bruce Wayne, and that Batman is just something he uses to hide his fears and his insecurities. That's my personal take.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like we're all afraid of something,
Mhm.
and yeah, I think very much it's just him just trying to find different ways to cope with that.
Yeah. Is Gates of Gotham another Dick Grayson as Batman story?
No, it is it
It's
is a Nightwing, or sorry, like Nightwing is in it, but it is Bruce Wayne Batman. It's like right after the whole return of Bruce Wayne
Okay.
and before like he really starts going again.
Okay.
It's like this weird in between.
Okay. So if we're done talking about Gates of Gotham, the next one I'm going to talk about is my favorite Batman story of all time, the No Man's Land saga.
He has the complete series, ladies and gentlemen. I am not kidding you. It is
No,
a
not the whole
book
thing.
it is a series that completely litters an entire show.
No, not the whole thing. I own the entire main series. That's like four massive trades. It's like I think 80 issues on its own. But then there's like three prologue or build up editions. It's like there's one where like the premise of the story is like, Gotham gets fucked up by a huge earthquake, and then the government, like, shuts off all access to Gotham and turns into a no man's land. And then Batman and his allies have to, like, kind of monitor and police what's left of Gotham to protect the remaining civilians and keep the villains in check who are all stuck there. And there's, like, the story, the edition where the earthquake happens. Then there's two more where it's like the build up to Gotham being shut off from the rest of the world. And then the actual No Man's Land story is like 4 volumes. And the whole thing is over 140 issues. I've read all of them. And the reason this is my favorite Batman story of all time is that I think 95% of these 140 plus issues are well written. It is just like the consistency of the quality of the writing is just really, really impressive. And like I said, the story goes on forever. It took me over half a year to read the whole thing, and does such a good job keeping everything interesting. Like, like gradually introducing all of Batman's rogues into the story, showing like their place in No Man's Land. Like my favorite part is like Penguin, who becomes like he's like in charge of like the black market. He just makes he makes a living just like selling like everyday commodities that people take for granted to desperate people in No Man's Land. It just shows his ruthless capitalistic side. And it also makes great use of all of Batman's allies. They all have important roles in the story. Nightwing, Robin. It introduced Oracle, introduced Cassandra Cain as Batgirl. That was her introductory story. So if you have the time and the money, I definitely recommend checking out the entire No Man's Land epic, all 140 plus issues of it.
So No Man's Land actually happened or was happening when I started getting into like heavily collecting comics. And so there was no way I was touching that with a 10-foot pole. because yeah, it was just so ridiculously long. But I ended up actually checking out that there's a novelization of it that's like as big as like any Tom Clancy book.
And didn't Greg Rucka write that? I think.
Yes. Yeah. And so I actually read the novelization first, and it was because of the novelization that I had to go back and read the comics. Because yeah, it's such a cool story, just with like every I mean, obviously they've used it, or they've reused the concept in like Arkham City.
The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, and the Dark Knight Rises, just having different sections of the city belonging to different villains, and then like basically altering it to fit their image. And I just loved the idea more than anything, more than Batman and his crew, more than any of the villains or anything. I loved the fact that there were a few like super hardcore, tough as nails cops who were like, well, guess what? We're starting our own gang and we're taking the city. And I loved watching the Blue Boys fight just for every inch of territory. And it was just really cool to see Bullock and Montoya and Gordon just go all out for the sake of Gotham and to try to reclaim their home. I love that story so much. I don't care how long it takes.
Yeah, No Man's Land really got me to respect the GCPD. I mean, I've always liked Gordon and Montoya and Bullock, but this was the first time where I really respected them as a super important part of Gotham. And I'll probably end up checking out the Gotham Central series because of it. That's focused.
Yeah, that was the next series I was actually gonna put in for mine.
Okay, I'll let you talk about it in a second. But I just want to reiterate, like, No Man's Land, it goes on forever, but it just keeps you interested the whole way. It's just so well paced. It just does such a good job utilizing pretty much every existing character in Batman's mythos. So again, it's not easy to get through the whole thing, but I still could not recommend it enough.
Yeah, and it even goes back to what I was saying before about Batman being that symbol of hope. Like, everybody's like, oh geez, we're screwed. What on earth are we going to do? We're stuck in this city, like literally a living hell. What are we going to do? And then boom, as soon as that bat symbol start showing up as like spray painted tags across the walls in different areas around the city. Everybody's like, "Oh, he's back. We actually might survive this." It's so cool, and just exploring what he means to the city as well.
Mm-hmm. So, Darnell, you want to go?
Yeah, so as Matt stated, Gotham Central, I think it's going to be the one that is not Batman, but the Batman Mythos books that I really do enjoy and love. Because like I said, I like, crime thrillers. I'm political scientist, so I do like, legal procedures and that sort of thing. And for me, Gotham Central does it so well because it focuses on the police. Like you do see the Robins, you do see not Batgirl, but no, the other girls, not Barbara Gordon, but everyone else. But you see it from their perception, so you can kind of understand when the cops are kind of weirded out by them. It's like, here's a 13-year-old boy grabbing a bloody man at the top of a building, and then just disappearing out of nowhere, and it's just like, holy crap. And then everything else, it's like they also have their own internal issues. Like Renee Montoya, a character that now everybody already kind of knows is a lesbian. But this is the book where she, and the way they did it was actually very good because essentially, she is one of the Gordon supporters. She's one of the characters that's like, no, well, we should do it the way Gordon does, and then the corrupt officers, when they find out that it's like, oh, she's actually a closeted lesbian, let's out her out because, of course that's going to bring her shame, and then that's going to know we have power over her. And then she just quit. Like, she just quit to give the middle finger to them. It's like, like, it kind of does show the intricacies on how, we already got to know that the GCPD is kind of broken, but also the idea that it's how broken and how united they kind of are. It's like, it's like their own little mini war within this fraction. It kind of shows like, yeah, they have so many problems here. Can you imagine the rest of the city?
Maybe that did her quitting the GCPD in Gotham Central lead into her 52 storyline.
Oh yeah, the 52. That's where I say she left and then she became mentor to she became the trainee to the Question, and then that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's also where you started to get a lot of the Crispus Allen stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if Darnell, you're done talking about Gotham Central, Joey, you got anything?
Well, we
what? What did he say?
If you're done talking about Gotham Central.
Yeah.
Okay.
We talked about.
I'm kind of done because there's nothing more I can really say without going specifically into things. And like I said, it's just more. If you're a fan of shows like Cops, or you're a fan of things like what's that other police show I kind of forget about? Not the Cops one, but the one that's the. Wait, what?
Law and Order.
Not Law and Order, because that's more lawyers. I was thinking
CSI?
more of the. Yeah, kind of like CSI, but more like the. Okay, we got a call on this, and then that sort of thing, and then with the villains and how the cops have to kind of deal with the villains after the heroes got to deal with them. Like I said, it's a really cool story, but I think the whole main driving message is the whole main driving hook is the idea on how like the inner fractions going on in the police station. Because like I said, you have the corrupt cops, which are the notorious one in Gotham, and then there's the the quote unquote good cops that the readers kind of know about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would like to bring up, since we already talked about Long Halloween, I briefly mentioned it, but I really do want to talk about Dark Victory, especially since, Matt, you brought up Lonely Place of Dying and the importance of Batman needing a Robin. So this is basically another exploration of that, but through the lens of the Long Halloween. So basically after everything that happens in the Long Halloween, there's a lot of loss being felt throughout the city of Gotham. but especially by both Batman and Gordon. Like Gordon, with Long Halloween being an unofficial sequel to Year One, and then Dark Victory being the official sequel to Long Halloween, like it's carrying those same story arcs. So you have Gordon, who's now estranged from his wife, Batman, who has had his first like major loss in the turning of Harvey Dent into Two-Face, and there's this whole theme of them just being alone and not really knowing what to do, to the point where even like as tough of a outer shell that Catwoman tries to put on, even she at one point like slaps Batman across the face because he doesn't seem to care at all about what's going to happen to Harvey now. And it's basically like Batman deciding, he's going to go it alone because he tried working with a team and it just ended up getting people hurt. And so he's just going to, bury himself in his work, and he starts to, like Batman does when he gets all mad and mopey, he just starts like violently beating the crap out of everybody that he sees. And it's not until he witnesses the death of Dick Grayson's parents at the circus and decides to take Dick in under his wing that he starts to basically become reattached to humanity. He sees this kid who could potentially end up just as miserable and alone as he is, and he's not going to let that happen. And it's great because the whole thing culminates in this, climactic fight of Dick Grayson now as Robin, helping Batman take down the bad guys. And so not only does Robin save Batman, but in the end, Dick Grayson saves Bruce Wayne. And it's a really cool origin story for Dick, and a really not as strong of a story as Long Halloween, but certainly a worthy follow-up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a Dick Grayson fan, I feel like I should definitely check that one out.
Yeah, Dark Victory is fantastic. I don't know. It's very much the good old days of the happy-go-lucky kid Dick Grayson before the reality of the world came crashing in on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Darnell, you have anything to say about Dark Victory?
No, I mean, like I said, it's the official sequel to Long Halloween. It pretty much does feel like there's a trilogy going on between Year One, Long Halloween, and this, and it's kind of like this would you can actually kind of see this integrating very well to the Batman mythos.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to point out, it has been mentioned by Christian Bale in interviews that Year One, Long Halloween, and Dark Victory were like the biggest ones that he were like the three books that he was handed for basically his homework before filming Batman.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if we're done talking about that one, I'm now going to talk about my other favorite Batman story of all time, The Killing Joke. If you want to read a extremely well-written and compelling Batman story, but don't want to put all the effort into reading the 140 issues of No Man's Land, then The Killing Joke is the next best thing to go to. I can't tell you guys how much I love that story. I love it so much that it's I use it for my Twitter header, the cover. It's my header on Twitter. So it's the best Joker story.
Killing Joke, and I have Flap Flash.
Yeah, it's the best Joker story of all time. That's not debatable. It's not my opinion. It is the best Joker story of all time. I'm half joking there, but it is, in my opinion, the Joker's greatest appearance. It does such a good job of making him very threatening, yet also giving him a playful side, because we've all seen those versions of the Joker that are just trying too hard to be edgy and threatening, that they forget that he is a very upbeat and playful villain, despite his really horrifying aspects. It's like, I think pretty much at this point everyone's at least somewhat familiar with the story. It's very controversial, very intense. It's got very disturbing subject matter, but it all feels justified. Like, I feel like all the very shocking and uncomfortable moments in the story, they do fulfill a greater purpose. They all feel earned for what Alan Moore is trying to do. Because, I mean, the premise of the story, it's about a psychopath trying to drive a man insane. Joker trying to drive Commissioner Gordon insane. So I feel like that premise does justify some pretty edgy and uncomfortable moments because they all play into the premise. It doesn't feel exploitive or distasteful. And it also does, I really like the ambiguous aspect of the story. It provides a possible origin for the Joker. If you don't really read closely, you might think it's giving away the Joker's origin, but that's not quite the case. It leaves everything up to interpretation, and I really like that aspect of it. Overall, I think it's one of Alan Moore's greatest works, and if you're a comic fan, it is above anything else we've talked about on the stream. I think it's the most essential story to read just because of its importance to Batman's mythos and its iconic status. That was a bit of a mouthful. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I am seriously the last person to judge you on talking a while about something that you're passionate about. But no, so I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I can't stand the Joker. However, if I'm going to read a Joker-centric story, Killing Joke is going to be the one. And obviously heavily drawn on by Chris Nolan for The Dark Knight, the idea of, one bad day changing everything. That was his whole thing about changing Harvey around in The Dark Knight, and also the idea of the multiple choice origin with the also used in The Dark Knight with the how I got these scars thing. But just that was the first time that the Joker became elemental to me. Leading up to that, I'd always just seen the Joker as, oh yeah, the dumb clown who thinks he's funny. And when I read The Killing Joke, Alan Moore showed me this whole different side to the character where he is just this elemental creature of evil, just doing things just for the heck of it, just whatever he thought sounded like a good idea at the time, and using Jim Gordon, this beloved character, as sort of his personal science experiment was just crazy to watch.
Yeah, I'll let you finish. But what you said just now kind of reminds me of this bit of writing in Arkham Asylum, where this the Joker's therapist is like, we don't think he even has a personality. He just is whatever he chooses to be at any moment. So with that, it just kind of like reminded me of that moment. But
hyper reality.
What's that?
No, that was a quote from the Hyper Reality.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. He is whatever he wants to be and whoever he wants to be at any given time, and it's just the idea that Joker's actually more sane than anybody else because he's the only one who sees the world for what it really is, so to speak. But yeah, it was the first time that I'd ever seen the Joker in a light where I took him seriously. Unfortunately, kind of with the Court of Owls, I feel like ever since the mainstream fandom got a hold of The Killing Joke, that they just expect everything to be The Killing Joke and expect Joker to always be that way and always be super over the top. But and so I kind of bemoan it for that. But it is definitely, like I said, if I'm going to make myself read a story with the Joker in it, it's going to be that one.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree with that. And I'm sorry to hog the microphone, but we've been going on for a while, and I feel like in order to do a stream like this, we have to talk about Frank Miller's Batman stories, particularly Year One and The Dark Knight Returns. So if we're done discussing The Killing Joke, either of you want to give your thoughts on either of those stories?
Uh,
Even when I hated Frank Miller, I always never heeded his Batman stories. Even Dark Knight Returns, which I used to always think was really overhyped, I always just still felt like, no, this, this is why he's he's good at return and year one. Like I said, even though when I still hated him, it was still my absolute number one favorite Batman stories because similar to why I say Earth One is my favorite Batman story. Earth One is the kind of like the mirror opposite of year one, even though it gets the same message across. Essentially, Bruce Wayne is determined. He is someone that is a superhero not because of the gadgets or anything like that, but more just because he's willing to do it no matter how difficult it becomes. And like the whole in Earth One, they kind of make fun of him a lot of times for it, but in year one, you do see like the whole growing of a badass sort of thing. It's like one of the reasons why I think I still have a huge soft spot for Arkham Origins because it takes so much from year one, so much of the elements that made year one so good, and it kind of brings you into that environment of the game.
Yeah, I do enjoy year one a lot. My issue with it is I feel like towards like the last third of the story, it kind of loses momentum and becomes fairly boring, maybe with the exception of the final scene. But
oh come on, you know that any time there's a baby being thrown off the bridge is always going to be good.
yeah, I guess so. But I just feel like it kind of lost some of the compelling edge that carried the first 2/3 of the story. But overall, I think it's a pretty solid read. I definitely prefer it as Batman's canon origin story over Scott Snyder's Zero Year. I'm sorry to keep ragging on Scott Snyder, but you kind of have to. We don't really have a choice.
well, the thing I tend to love about just every real iteration of a Batman origin, and year one is no exception, is if you tell Batman's origin, you have to tell the origin of him and Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jim Gordon is such an essential part of who Batman is that you cannot separate the two. And so I love watching in any version of his origin the just the growth of Jim and the growth of their relationship together. And so giving me a Jim Gordon who says things like, "It's been a while since I've beat up a Green Beret." Like, okay, like you don't need all this extra like backstory to it. Just he's able to give you like Frank Miller's able to give you these little glimpses into what's there and just inform the entire character in these tiny little little thoughts.
You also have like just the other parts, like the fact that it's like, oh, he came in from Chicago. Like, yeah, where's that one bit? Like, where's that story pretty much?
Yeah, exactly. And like he already has this reputation coming from Chicago of what kind of a guy he is. And it's just but then also getting to watch Bruce kind of hone his craft. And I love
getting down by underage hookers.
Well, yeah, but there's something that Miller does in actually throughout this book, and actually Darwin Cookies is the same thing in that ego story I mentioned. I love when the inner monologues are done in like this cursive handwriting, and like the boxes look like torn pages and stuff like that. Like they're writing in the journal. Like it feels like Batman's writing in that black case book that has become a popular idea, and just it brings a lot more to the character than me just assuming that he's just creepily talking to himself all the time. But if he's using it sort of like as this therapeutic sort of coping mechanism, like getting everything that's happening to him on paper, it makes a lot more sense to me, and it's just a little touch that I really like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am between like Miller's two iconic Batman stories. I think year one, I do prefer it slightly more. And just to real quick get my thoughts on Dark Knight Returns out of the way, I think it's a pretty damn good story. I think it has a lot of merit. It's got some good scenes. but I think it's a bit hard to read. Like, not only is it extremely wordy, but it's just so much happens in the story. It's a bit ludicrously paced, just like hops between plot points so fast. Like, first, we got a Batman fighting like this like, gang that's taking over Gotham. Then it cuts immediately to like some hijinks with the Joker, then to a Cold War allegory, then fight with Superman. It's just like, I think Miller had too many ideas for the story, and he just like tried to pack too much in. So it leads to something that does have merit, is worth reading, but it's a bit hard for some people to get through.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was so afraid I was going to be the only one here who doesn't just love The Dark Knight Returns. Honestly, if you stopped The Dark Knight Returns right after he beats the mutant leader and turns the mutants into like into the Sons of Batman, I like get rid of everything else and I'm on board. But yeah, when you start to bring the Joker in, and I get that this was back in 1986, so it was before all like the oversaturation of the Joker, but still, it's like, okay, I get it. The Joker and Batman, eternal struggle, blah blah blah. I got it. I don't need that anymore. Also, yeah, don't just because you have a problem as a writer with Reagan and the politics of the day, don't just all of a sudden bring Superman out of nowhere and Green Arrow out of nowhere, like just because you feel like making some sort of like really like out of nowhere statement. Honestly, like you were saying, like just he's bringing in all these different metaphors and it just becomes super jumbled at the end, and I feel like it really lost its focus about what makes the first act so great of him like kind of getting back to where he was and becoming the Batman all over again and reclaiming his sort of hold over the city and making criminals fear him again. And I'm also not a huge fan of how Frank Miller wants to like lean Batman towards hyperviolence. He didn't in year one, but with Dark Knight Returns, and then later that series that shall not be named. He just, I don't really care for the lengths that he takes his Batman to, and I'm not saying that everything I don't like sucks. I'm just saying that I don't want to read that kind of Batman personally. And so
Have
for
you read
me,
have you read the Master Race, the new Miller story he did?
no, absolutely not, because
Oh, trust me, it
I just want the
personifies
first.
everything you think.
I just like I said, and anytime that I pick up The Dark Knight Returns in book form, I will stop after the Sons of Batman come around. I actually still to this day only own the first disc of The Dark Knight Returns animated because that's where it ends. And it's just because I just don't care about anything else that happens in that story, because it just becomes this convoluted nonsense of him just going, well, what can I think of next? And loses all focus on what his story originally started out as.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one who has those issues with the story. But I mean, like I said, it does have a lot of merit. I really like Carrie Kelly as Robin. I think she's a good character. I do really like Bruce's arc in the first half, where he's like just totally worn down. But like the moment he realizes that Gotham is truly going to hell without him, he just sets out to like reclaim his status as the Caped Crusader or whatever. So it is, and again, I think it is essential reading, but it is a tough essential read. It is a bit of a chore to get through at times. So I do have mixed thoughts on that one. But anyone
What
else?
you, Darnell?
What?
So I said, I kind of, you kind of alluded to how you feel about it based off of what you said about the Master Race. But as far as Dark Knight Returns itself, what are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, there's a huge bunch of not to get anything like that, but there's a point that, like, you know, from like in the whole point of the you know, Batman's supposed to be old in this series, in this universe. He's an old begrudged man. Let's just say it involves the plot involves a Lazarus pit, and it's like, what the ever loving fuck am I reading? It is literally Batman has become full scale Jesus now.
Bat Jesus.
Hey, it is what it is, and people buy it, and you know it's there's nothing we can do about it except vote with our wallets.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna. It's not really something to discuss as like one of the greatest Batman stories ever, but just as a really solid Batman, story. Real quick, just if none of you have read the Grant Morrison JLA story, Rock of Ages, please go do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great Batman look at Batman. Also, Tower of Babel, another great Batman story within the JLA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm currently reading through Grant Morrison's Justice League stuff, so hopefully I will get to that eventually. That man can do no wrong.
Exactly.
But if we're done talking about those Frank Miller stories, we've been going on a while. I think it's best we start wrapping up. Are there any other stories you guys absolutely must talk about before we finish?
I kind of blew my load.
I think that's about it. We talked about all the ones I had on my list anyway.
Yeah, let me quickly go over my list just to see if there's anything else I have to bring up. Nope. Yeah, I think I said my piece. So if you guys are ready, I think we can wrap up the stream.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Okay, I really like how the stream turned out. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks to my guests for participating. I had a really good time. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.